How many times have you said yes when your heart whispered no? The moment you learn to say no to what drains you, you open the door to freedom. Keep watching, and you'll discover how awareness can shift everything for you. Stop for a second. Not to relax, not to take a break, but to look yourself dead in the eye. Not in the mirror, but in the quiet place inside your head where no one else can lie to you. Who are you? And I don't mean your name, your job, or the story you've been telling people to feel safe. I mean the real you. The one you've been avoiding when you scroll endlessly, when you fill your days with noise, when you hide behind plans that never really start. Right now, you are living in one of two ways, by default or by design. If you're living by default, you are a passenger in your own life. Your identity, your habits, your beliefs, they were handed to you, shaped by other people's opinions, the culture you grew up in, and the random events that happened to you. You didn't choose them. You inherited them. And here's the painful truth. If you don't claim the steering wheel, life will keep driving you to destinations you didn't choose until you wake up one day wondering how the hell you ended up here. Awareness is the ignition key. Until you know exactly who you are and why you do what you do, you can't change a single thing that matters. Napoleon Hill said, "Until you know your own mind, you cannot control it." Think about that. If you don't know yourself, then who's running your life? Your impulses? Your fears? Your routines that you never questioned? Imagine living in a house where every room was rearranged by strangers while you were asleep. You'd wake up confused every morning. That's how most people live. Inside a mind they've never explored, following rules they never agreed to. Let's rip the mask off. You've been told that figuring out who you are is this mystical, lifelong quest that takes decades of soul searching. That's a lie designed to keep you passive. The truth is, you can start seeing yourself clearly right now. The problem isn't that it's complicated. The problem is that it's uncomfortable. Awareness means shining a spotlight on every lazy excuse, every fake smile, every habit you've justified. And most people would rather live in a comfortable illusion than face an inconvenient truth. But you're not most people. You're here because some part of you knows that your life could be so much more if you had the courage to look without flinching. Let me warn you, awareness is not about positive thinking. Positive thinking is fine when you already know your direction, but if you're lost, positive thinking just makes you lost and cheerful. Awareness is about clarity, and clarity sometimes burns. Dale Carnegie once wrote that the rare individual is the one who takes a hard, honest inventory of himself without trying to make excuses. That's the level we're aiming for, brutal honesty. Because when you stop lying to yourself, even in small ways, you suddenly start to see the map of your life with shocking precision. Here's the first challenge. Describe yourself without using any role, label, or relationship. Not, "I'm a father," not, "I'm a designer," not, "I'm an introvert." Strip all of that away. Who's left? That's the raw material you're working with. Most people panic here because they realize they've built their entire identity on external things that could disappear tomorrow. Your job could vanish, your relationship could end, your health could shift. And if you've tied your identity to those things, you're not just losing them, you're losing yourself. Awareness is the insurance policy against that kind of collapse. When you know yourself beyond the surface, you can rebuild from anything. You could lose everything material and still walk into a new life with your core intact, because your core is real and it's yours. But here's where it gets real. Awareness is not just about noticing who you are, it's about catching yourself in the act of living unconsciously. Earl Nightingale once said, "You become what you think about most of the time." If that's true, then the thoughts you never pay attention to are the ones building your future while you sleepwalk through the present. How many times today have you replayed the same old fears? How many times have you imagined failure before you've even tried? Every unnoticed thought is a vote for the life you'll have tomorrow. You need to become a hunter of your own mind. Track your patterns like a predator tracks its prey, not with judgment, but with precision. If you want to change your life, you have to first catch yourself in the small, invisible moments where you give it away. That's awareness in action. And yes, it's exhausting at first, because you realize how much of your day is spent in automatic mode. But that exhaustion, that's the sound of you waking up. People will tell you, just be yourself. Nice advice, but useless if you don't know who that is. So let's make it specific. Being yourself doesn't mean defending your habits or doubling down on your flaws because that's just who I am. Being yourself means actively designing a self you respect and then living in alignment with it. That's not fake, that's mastery. Think about the last time you felt completely alive. Not just happy, not just entertained, I mean fully present, as if every nerve in your body was switched on. What were you doing? Who were you with? What part of you was speaking, acting, deciding in that moment? That's the real you, peeking through the noise. Most people let those moments fade like dreams after waking up. You can't do that anymore. You have to chase them, repeat them, and build a life where that state is your default, not your exception. Here's something you might not like hearing. The version of you that's been running your life until now is not the final version. It's a draft, a rough, unfinished draft written by your upbringing, your environment, and your past decisions. If you cling to that draft because it feels familiar, you will spend your life defending a character you didn't even choose. Awareness is about grabbing the pen and starting to rewrite. And rewrite fast, because life isn't going to wait while you figure it out slowly. I'm going to push you now. Over the next 24 hours, every time you make a decision, big or small, I want you to stop for 3 seconds and ask, is this choice coming from who I really am or from the version of me I was told to be? That's it. 3 seconds. You will be shocked at how often the answer is the latter. That's not failure, that's progress. Because once you see the pattern, you can break it. Awareness doesn't just change your mind, it changes your energy. When you know who you are, you stop wasting fuel on pretending. You stop saying yes to things that drain you. You stop chasing approval from people whose opinions don't matter. Your focus sharpens. Your confidence stops being a performance and starts being a fact. And the people around you can feel it. They might not even understand why, but they'll sense that you've stepped into your own skin for the first time. Some people will love it. Some people will hate it. That's fine. Your job is not to be universally liked. Your job is to be undeniably you. And the paradox is, when you live like that, you often attract the right people effortlessly, because authenticity is magnetic. I'm not asking you to figure everything out tonight. I'm asking you to start walking with your eyes open. Start questioning every default setting in your mind. Start noticing where you end and other people's programming begins. That's how you take back your life. The truth is, you are not here to live someone else's definition of success. You're here to become so aware of who you are that every move you make, every risk you take, every relationship you build comes from a place of alignment, not imitation. That's not easy, but nothing worth doing ever is. And here's the secret. Once you start, there's no going back. You can't unsee the truth. You can't unknow yourself. And when you finally stand in the full light of that awareness, the world stops being something that happens to you and starts being something you create. You've taken the first step. You've started to see yourself. But here's where most people mess it up. They get a glimpse of the truth and then run back into the shadows because the light is too bright. They realize that knowing who they are also means taking responsibility for every single thing in their life. And responsibility is heavy. It's not fun. It's not romantic. but it's the only way you ever get free. Let me say it straight. You can't claim awareness without also claiming ownership. Once you know why you act a certain way, you can't hide behind, "that's just the way I am," anymore. That excuse dies. And for a lot of people, that's terrifying. Because if you're not a victim of your past or your circumstances, then you are the one holding the pen. And that means every blank page is your fault if it stays blank. Napoleon Hill talked about the definitiveness of purpose as the starting point of all achievement. He didn't say, maybe have a vague idea of who you are and hope for the best. He said, get definite. That's where awareness takes you, to a place where your identity is so solid, so understood, that every choice either moves you closer to it or further away. And if it moves you further away, you cut it. No debate. But that's not how most people live. They drift. They half decide. They wait for a sign, for the perfect moment, for someone to validate their instincts. You don't have time for that. Life isn't waiting for you to be ready. And the brutal truth is, the longer you avoid deciding who you are, the more you let other people decide for you. Think about this. Every brand you see out there, from a small cafe to a global company, has an identity, a clear image. They know their colors, their style, their voice. They know exactly what they stand for and what they don't. Now ask yourself, if a company with a coffee machine and 2 employees can be that clear about its identity, why are you walking around in a fog about yours? You are the CEO of your life, and right now, you need a rebrand. Start with this. What are 3 non-negotiables about who you are? Not the fluff, not the "I'm nice to people" stuff. I mean the things you will defend, even if it costs you. Integrity, courage, creative expression, relentless growth. If you can't name 3 right now, that's your homework for tonight. Because without them, you're just reacting to life instead of directing it. Awareness sharpens your edges. It teaches you that saying yes to everything is not kindness, it's cowardice. Saying no to what doesn't align with you isn't selfish, it's self-respect. People who lack awareness keep bleeding energy into situations, people, and habits that have no place in their real life. Then they wonder why they're exhausted and uninspired. It's not a mystery, it's math. If you keep pouring water into a bucket with holes, you end up dry. I'm going to give you a picture. Imagine you're holding a compass, but the needle isn't fixed. Every time someone says something about you, the needle swings. Every time you compare yourself to someone online, the needle swings. Every time you chase approval, the needle swings. That's life without awareness. No direction. You're moving, sure, but in circles. Now imagine locking that needle into true north, your core self, so no matter what storm you're in, you can still navigate. That's awareness at work. But don't confuse awareness with perfection. You're going to mess up. You're going to say yes when you should have said no. You're going to act out of fear instead of truth. The point is not to become flawless. The point is to notice it faster, adjust quicker, and stop making the same mistake 200 times before you learn. Every time you notice yourself slipping, that's a victory. That's the muscle of awareness getting stronger. Earl Nightingale said, "Our environment, the world in which we live and work, is a mirror of our attitudes and expectations." Let's break that open. If your world feels chaotic, maybe your mind is. If your relationships are shallow, maybe you've been shallow with yourself. If your days feel meaningless, maybe you've been living without meaning. Awareness hurts because it points the finger back at you. But that's exactly why it's powerful, because it means you can change it. Let's talk about the enemy of awareness, distraction. Distraction isn't just your phone or your TV. It's anything that keeps you from sitting alone with your own thoughts. That's why people fill every silence, why they rush from one thing to the next, why they scroll until their eyes burn. Silence forces you to hear yourself. And if you've been avoiding awareness, that silence feels like a threat. But if you want to grow, you need to treat silence like a workout. At first, it's uncomfortable. Then, it's addictive. Try this. Tomorrow morning, before you touch your phone, before you even talk to anyone, sit for 10 minutes with nothing but your thoughts. Don't meditate in the fancy, guided way. Just sit. Let the mental noise pour in. Watch it. That's you. That's what's been running your life without your permission. And in that space, you'll start to notice something. Under all the noise, there's a quieter voice. That's your truth. But it doesn't shout. You have to make space to hear it. And once you hear it, you have to act on it. Because awareness without action is just entertainment. It's like watching a movie about your life and then going right back to doing nothing about it. You have to train yourself to respond to your own clarity like it's a command. That's how you prove to yourself that you mean it. People will notice the change. They'll say you seem different. They'll say you have this presence. What they're sensing is not arrogance, it's alignment. When you are fully aware of who you are, you stop leaking doubt into the room. You don't need to sell yourself to anyone. You just are. And that calm certainty is rare, which is exactly why it's so attractive and so powerful. Here's the kicker. Once you get a taste of this level of awareness, you'll start to see it everywhere. Or rather, you'll start to see the lack of it in others. You'll watch people defend lives they hate. You'll hear them say, "That's just the way it is." And you'll feel this almost physical reaction because you'll know it's not the way it is. It's just the way they've accepted. And you won't want that for yourself ever again. So, let's make this personal. Over the next week, I want you to write down every moment you notice yourself doing something that doesn't feel like you. Don't judge it, just capture it. At the end of the week, read that list. That's your starting point. That's where the work begins. And if you keep at it week after week, you'll notice the list getting shorter. Not because you're avoiding the truth, but because you're starting to live it. And that's when something incredible happens. Life starts matching you. Opportunities show up that fit you like a glove. People come into your life who feel like home. Decisions that used to paralyze you suddenly feel obvious. Not because the world got easier, but because you got clear. And clarity is a superpower in a world where most people are stumbling in the dark. You've started sharpening your awareness, and now the game changes, because once you begin to see yourself clearly, you also start to see the gap between who you are today and who you're capable of becoming. And that gap can either inspire you or crush you. The choice is yours. Most people see the gap and freeze. They think, it's too far, it's too late, I'll never get there. But that's because they're measuring themselves against an imagined finish line instead of taking the next step in front of them. The truth is, you don't need to become the final version of yourself overnight. You just need to be a little more you today than you were yesterday. That's it. But you have to keep doing it, relentlessly, without excuses. Here's the thing about awareness. Once you see the gap, you can't unsee it. It's like finding out your favorite restaurant's kitchen is filthy. You might still be hungry, but you'll never taste the food the same way again. When you see the gap between your current self and your potential, it will gnaw at you every time you waste a day. And that's good. That discomfort is fuel. Napoleon Hill said, "Every adversity, every failure, every heartache carries with it the seed of an equal or greater benefit." Well, every moment you realize you're falling short carries the seed of transformation, if you plant it instead of ignoring it. But awareness without movement is dangerous. It turns into self-loathing, into that constant voice that says, "I should be better," while you do nothing. That's the trap. Awareness is step one. Action is step two, and they have to live together. You can't just know who you are. You have to act like it. Let's talk about acting like it, because this is where people hide behind the idea of authenticity. They think being authentic means doing whatever they feel in the moment. Wrong. Being authentic means making decisions that align with your deepest values, not your passing moods. It's not about being raw, it's about being real. And real takes discipline. If one of your core truths is that you are a creator, then you create even when you're tired. If one of your truths is courage, then you make the hard call even when it's uncomfortable. Awareness will tell you what matters. Discipline will prove that you mean it. And here's where awareness hits you in the gut. It makes you realize just how many of your problems are self-made. Not all, but more than you like to admit. You'll see how you've repeated patterns because they were familiar, even when they hurt you. You'll see how you've said yes to people you didn't respect because you wanted to avoid conflict. You'll see how you've distracted yourself instead of facing the one thing you knew would change your life. And at first, it's brutal. But soon, it becomes freeing. Because if you created the mess, you can uncreate it. I'm going to give you a mental image. Imagine your life as a room filled with furniture. Over the years, other people have walked in and dropped their stuff, their beliefs, their expectations, their fears, and you just left it there. You've been walking around it, tripping over it, decorating around it. Awareness is the moment you turn the lights on and see the clutter for what it is. Action is grabbing the trash bags and clearing it out. And the more you clear, the more space you have for the things you actually want in your life. Now, here's something people don't tell you about awareness. It will cost you relationships. When you change, the people who benefited from your old patterns might not like it. The friend who loved venting to you for hours may disappear when you stop feeding that habit. The colleague who counted on you to say yes to every extra task might resent you when you set boundaries. Some people will say, "You've changed," like it's an accusation. Good. That's proof you're doing it right. Dale Carnegie once wrote, "When dealing with people, remember you are not dealing with creatures of logic, but with creatures of emotion." That applies to you too. Your old habits aren't just logical systems, they're emotional attachments. You've tied your identity to them. Letting them go will feel like a breakup. You'll want to run back to the comfort of who you used to be, but you can't. Because the moment you step back into the old version of yourself, you'll feel it, that suffocating sense that you're betraying your own potential. And here's the twist. The more aware you become, the more responsibility you feel, not just for your own life, but for the way you affect others. You start noticing how your energy changes a room, how your words land, how your silence speaks. You realize that self-awareness is also other awareness, because the clearer you are on yourself, the easier it is to see through the masks other people wear. Now, let's talk about the real prize of awareness: freedom. When you know who you are and you live in alignment with it, you stop needing constant external approval. You stop chasing the next shiny thing to feel valid. You stop building your life on the shaky ground of other people's opinions. That doesn't mean you stop caring about people. It means you stop trading your truth for their comfort. I'll give you a challenge. Over the next 48 hours, I want you to say exactly what you mean at least 3 times when you would normally soften it or avoid it. Don't be rude, be real. Watch how it feels. Notice who leans in when you do it and who pulls back. That's information. The people who can handle the real you are the ones you want to keep close. The rest? Let them drift. Earl Nightingale said, "The opposite of courage in our society is not cowardice, it is conformity. Awareness is the death of blind conformity. Once you see your own patterns, you also see the systems around you, the cultural scripts, the unspoken rules, the invisible cages. And when you see them, you can walk right past them while others are still following them without question. That's not rebellion for rebellion's sake, that's freedom by design. And once you have that freedom, the possibilities explode. You start trying things you would have talked yourself out of before. You start pursuing opportunities you used to think were not for someone like me. You start taking risks that make your old self look cautious and small, not because you've suddenly become reckless, but because you finally trust yourself enough to navigate whatever happens. This is the tipping point. If you keep going, you won't just live differently, you'll become unrecognizable to the person you used to be. And the beauty is, you won't miss them. You'll wonder how you ever thought that was all you could be. This is where everything comes together. You've learned to see yourself, you've started taking ownership, you've faced the discomfort of the gap between who you are and who you could be, and now it's time to live it. Not talk about it, not dream about it, but actually embody it every single day until it's not something you're working on anymore, it's simply who you are. Here's the truth that most people don't want to accept. Awareness is useless unless it turns into consistent action. You can read every self-development book ever written, watch hours of videos, have conversations that make you feel inspired, but if your daily habits don't change, nothing changes. The final stage of awareness is integration. It's when the things you've learned stop being something you have to remind yourself about and start being the automatic way you live. This is where discipline becomes your ally. Not the harsh, joyless discipline people imagine, but the kind of discipline that feels like self-respect in motion. If you know you are the kind of person who values health, you eat and move in ways that reflect that, even when you don't feel like it. If you know you are the kind of person who values growth, you read, learn, and stretch yourself, even when it's uncomfortable. Discipline isn't punishment. It's the proof you give yourself every day that your awareness is real, that it's not just an idea floating in your head. Napoleon Hill said, "You are the master of your destiny. You can influence, direct, and control your own environment. You can make your life what you want it to be." That's not just motivation, it's a job description. Your life is your responsibility. And now that you see yourself clearly, you can't unknow it. You can't pretend you don't have the power. Every time you drift now, you'll feel it in your gut. That's awareness doing its job. But here's the beautiful part. When you live in alignment long enough, the old noise fades. The doubts still whisper, but they don't run the show anymore. The fear still shows up, but it doesn't hold the steering wheel. You start moving through life with a kind of grounded confidence that people notice, and this isn't the fake confidence of talking louder or acting tougher. It's quiet, steady, unshakable, because it's not for show, it's for you. And here's something you might not expect. The deeper your awareness gets, the more compassion you'll feel for other people. Not in a pitying way, but in a way that understands that most people are living inside patterns they can't see. You won't waste time judging them. You'll either help them see what's possible, or you'll keep moving forward without needing to drag them with you. You'll also stop chasing a perfect version of yourself that doesn't exist. The point isn't to become flawless. The point is to become true. To wake up every day and live in a way that makes you proud when your head hits the pillow at night. And you'll realize that awareness is not a finish line you cross once and for all. It's a practice. Some days you'll feel deeply connected to yourself. Other days you'll slip into autopilot and catch it hours later. That's normal. The difference now is that you have the tools to notice, adjust, and return to alignment. Let's make it practical. Right now, think about the single biggest area of your life where you've been out of alignment. Maybe it's your work. You're in a job that pays the bills but kills your spirit. Maybe it's your relationships. You've been tolerating disrespect or distance because it's easier than facing the truth. Maybe it's your health. You've been ignoring the basics because you keep telling yourself you'll start tomorrow. Whatever it is, name it. Awareness starts with naming things. Then commit to one action this week that moves you closer to alignment in that area. Not a giant leap, not a perfect fix, just one real step. Here's why that matters. Awareness without movement turns into regret, but awareness plus movement turns into momentum, and momentum changes everything. Once you start stacking small, aligned actions, you create a rhythm, and that rhythm becomes your new normal. It's like tuning an instrument. At first it takes focus and adjustment, but soon the sound is pure without you even thinking about it. Earl Nightingale said, "Success is the progressive realization of a worthy ideal." Progressive, not instant. The moment you know who you are and start living in that direction, you're already successful. Not because you've arrived, but because you're moving with purpose. That's what most people never experience. The peace that comes from knowing you're on your own path, not someone else's. And that's where the real freedom lives. Because when you're in alignment, you're not chasing or forcing, you're choosing. You choose your work because it fits your values. You choose your relationships because they fit your truth. You choose your habits because they fit your vision. And every choice reinforces the core of who you are. That's how you build a life that feels like yours in every room, on every day, in every season. Now, I'm going to leave you with this. The moment you walked into this process, you took the first step towards becoming unshakable. Not perfect, not untouchable, unshakable. Because when you know who you are, life can knock you down, but it can't take you out. You'll fall, but you'll rise faster. You'll fail, but you'll learn sharper. You'll hurt, but you'll heal stronger. And through it all, you'll stay rooted in something deeper than circumstance, yourself. So don't just sit with this. Live it. Make the call you've been avoiding. End the thing that's been draining you. Start the thing you've been dreaming about. Speak the truth you've been swallowing. The time for pretending you don't know who you are is over. From this moment forward, every step you take is either toward yourself or away from yourself. Choose you, every time. Because when you do, life doesn't just happen to you anymore. You happen to life. And that's when everything changes.